So we've got the 3 newest models from Srixon. Srixon has made big strides with their drivers over the last number of years. And I think with this lineup here, they've created a lot of segmentation, which you've seen through the robot data,
Yep.
but also a driver that really offers a lot of distance and a look that players prefer.
Yeah, I love the look of this driver. It just looks clean and understated. And I think it just goes to show that you don't have to add a lot of color and bells and whistles to make a really strong driver. We've already seen 2 of the biggest names in golf add this driver to the bag. Brooks Koepka, who is kind of between drivers, and then Hideki Matsuyama, who, again, Hideki's not a guy, I know he tests a lot. He usually has 4 or 5 drivers in the bag on any given week in a PGA Tour event, but he puts a lot of these clubs through a very thorough testing process before he ever gets into the bag. So 2 big names already with the driver. I think that tells you a lot about it.
I think the only person that hits more golf balls and tests more than this robot is Hideki. And I think to showcase how much goes into what they design and put into their drivers is a big thing for him. And he has a lot of feedback too. And I think you don't have to be one of the best players in the world to be able to find a driver that fits in your bag out of this lineup either, which I think is important to tell. Because just like with their irons, they've segmented into the 7 and the 5 series. So you've got the 7 in your hands there. It's got more workability with the adjustable weights on the back, and golfers can fine tune with the loft sleeve as well.
Yeah, a little more compact profile. This is a driver that I think you're going to see a lot of better players kind of gravitate towards because of the overall shaping. We're used to seeing Srixon come out with 2 different versions. The 7, again, more, that lower spin. You got the 5 that's going to be for, it's still I mean, look, Hideki's using it again, so it's not a driver for a mid-handicapper, but just a different launch, spin characteristics. But then we've got another model too, RB, that's being thrown in here, and I think that's the one that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, so the other 2 drivers that really stand out in this lineup are the ZX5. Now, they only had the 1 model previously, which is more still in the lower spin. Nothing's really high spin anymore, but it fits into that more mid-spin profile to fit that bell curve, as we like to say. But the standout here is the 5 LS. So for golfers that are looking for more forgiveness, but you don't want that workability in the 7, you have that with the new 5 LS. And I think this to me is the standout, because to create a driver that's more workable, you need a little bit of extra spin, which you see in the 7. But now you have a driver that offers more forgiveness, but the numbers show that this thing offers the lowest spin in the lineup, but it is also one of the most forgiving.
Absolutely. So let's go to the numbers, please. Drum roll. Okay, so the LS model, as RB said, was the lowest spinning of the last 2 cycles. So not only this cycle, but the previous 2-year cycle of the ZX5 and ZX7. So it's a really interesting and I think really strategic insertion into the line to really benefit those faster swinging players and players that are struggling with a little too much spin. Both the ZX5 and the ZX7 models increase launch angle while decreasing spin. So they played a little bit with CG location to get a higher launch while keeping that spin down. The ZX5 had a tighter accuracy pattern than the ZX7, and there was a slightly faster ball speed off the ZX7 center hits versus the ZX5, while the LS, back to your point, had the fastest ball speed. And my theory on that is because it was the lowest spinning, once again, that energy transfer isn't going into a spin axis, it's going into a ball speed axis.
It's kind of rare to see a driver that is going to launch higher but spin less. And with this,
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so there's technology built into this golf club, which I think is really helping with that. The big one being rebound frame and the way they're creating flex zones within the head to help with that energy transfer. And anytime you get that little bit of flex, just like when you hit it like a high on the face of a driver, right? You're going to be able to see that higher launch with less spin. Sometimes they can get too low spin when you hit those high knucklers. But they're, in essence, building technology into this driver where you're getting those numbers like that, obviously with a more stable flight off the center, which is why that's a huge improvement for golfers that, I think people think that they need to hit it lower with the driver to always get the most out of it.
No.
But if you can get it higher, with less spin, that's where you're going to see the benefit, because there's way less resistance up there than there is trying to roll it on the ground.
Well, and here's the other component of this. Most players need launch as their friend. Most players don't swing fast enough to get in the air. And also, let's be fair, most players kind of come over the top a little bit, so they're hitting down on the ball, so they're de-lofting the club face and the loft angle as it is. So launch angle for the majority of players, you like wrenches, I like bell curves, back to the bell curves, they need to get the ball in the air. But when they're hitting down on the ball, they're also spinning the ball a little too much. So if you get the ball in the air and reduce that spin, you're maximizing distance.
Yep. Something else to point out here that really helps these drivers remain stable, gain that high launch, is it's a thinner overall crown than previous years. There's an internal ridges and lattice work going on that it's going to keep it stable, but they're able to remove some discretionary weight and place it in other spots on the driver. And I think that's how you're able to create a driver like the ZX5 LS, is you're able to grab some of that discretionary weight that you maybe didn't have with the previous version.